Quick video to show um, implant placement number 4 area. What we're going to do before we import the model scan is to actually just place the implant in the maxilla. So click on maxilla, Blue Sky Bio, Biomax, and I would prefer a 4.3 in this location. Let's see what a 10 looks like. That would be my ideal length. So essentially placing the implant in the bone in the ideal position based on the bone quality and quantity. Irregardless of prosthetic considerations, which we'll look at that later on. So another thing you can do is just kind of angle it. If you want to, kind of line this up with the proximal tooth in front of it, slide it back to make sure you have the right angle, and then going back into this image, making sure that looks good, and then finally, I really like to look at this image and scroll through. This is taking your right button and clicking it forward to zoom in and just scrolling through this image to make sure this looks ideal. So now what we'll do is we will import our STL, so file, import STL model, and this is going to be in our Dropbox file. So we'll go to Dropbox. We'll pull this. Let's see. That's what it looks like. Press OK. And it's going to ask him to mesh these two together. So this looks like a scan. So what I'll do is click on some points. So holding down the shift button, 2 here. Always like to get at least 2 on both sides, most posterior as I possibly can. And then get 1 in the anterior, maybe even 2. And I found that this helps out pretty well if you do something like this. Press align. Let it think for a little bit, and then once it's aligned, self-aligns, we can go ahead and check it in the software and just press OK. All right, once it's imported, we can check this image right here. So if you just scroll through and you can look at the accuracy of the stitched versus the CT data. Now you're going to have some scatter, but you have to make sure that, see, this looks off here. You're going to have to make sure that it is as ideal as possible. So I don't want to move my implant, so I'll lock the implant. I'm going to change this to pilot drill guide. You can see the width of that change. And now I'll look at this again. What you could also do is, if you don't need the mandible, you can go into surfaces and then scroll down to the bottom and let's see, click isolate, and it'll isolate it if the meshes are clean. This one looks like it has a lot of scatter, so it might not be able to isolate properly. So the way to do that is if you can turn these down a little bit and then press isolate again. Yeah, get rid of them. So this will be easier for us to see. So I'm trying to see how well the data meshed together. And it looks like there's some duplication. I can't tell if that's from the impression or the CT data. So it looks like CT, looks like impression. Let's go back into, just to make sure that we have it, let's go back into model manipulation. Click on points and click align. And this will help us align the DICOM data to the impression, or STL of the impression. All right, I'll pull this model up. So this is much more accurate points of interest. So what you need to do is find some pretty specific points on both the CT data and your model. See, there's a lot of scatter. All right, so this would be a good point. What you can do is hold down Shift key, click here, and then click here. And you kind of want one on the buckle somewhere and one on the lingual at least. Some clear defined points. Here's a good lingual one. This is a crown. This might have a little bit of I don't think it's going to be very accurate. When you want at least 4 points, this is 2. See how nice and accurate this impression is compared to the scatter I'm seeing here. So then what I'll do is I'll get some cuss tips if they look pretty good. So this would be a decent cuss tip. I want to get something over here. It's taking me some time. We can even do something like this just for now. And then, go a couple millimeters down. Just try to get some points. Press OK. Now if you go back into this data and you start looking at the outline, this looks a lot better as compared to where it was before. There's a little bit of, there's a small gap here. It's not flush with the facial there. See? Still seeing that. So what that means is this side is stitched very well, but this side needs to be stitched a little bit better. Yeah, I'm still seeing it here. So let's go back into Align. So surprisingly, this side stitched better than this side where I have more points. So what I'll do is I'll add one on the lingual here. Press OK. That sometimes does it. And it did. You can see I'm tight here. That's all we needed. Okay. So now that we're stitched, I'm gonna turn this, go back into surfaces, turn this off, and this is the CT surface, the original. And I'm gonna look at this from a prosthetic standpoint, and I really want this in line with the central fossa of these adjacent teeth. It's a little bit more towards the buckle, so that's an easy fix. All I have to do is go back into implants, unlock this, get this to rotate a little bit more, about right there. And there we go. From here on out, it's pretty simple. I'm going to go into guide panel. Make sure I'm on the STL. Click draw. Make sure I'm clicked on maxilla. Hold down the shift key, and I want 1 to 2 teeth behind it. And then I like to go at least to the midline. Even better to get cross arch if you can, even for single teeth. I don't want to go that far down in the vestibule, so I'll shorten that up. I want to capture some of this tooth if I can. You can move these around. And then something like that. That looks good. So now we'll do is press create surgical guide. All right, it's done rendering. It's going to look something like this. And now it's ready to 3D print.